The craft of moonshining. How moonshiners evade capture and arrest. The history of moonshining is as old as the American frontier, deeply woven into the fabric of American culture, often romanticized as a rebellious tradition. But beneath the myths and legends, moonshining has been a secretive, sometimes dangerous operation, involving skillful evasion of law enforcement. From the mountains of Appalachia to the backwoods of the Deep South, moonshiners have operated in defiance of prohibition laws, evading capture and arrest using a variety of cunning techniques. While some see moonshining as a symbol of resilience and rebellion, others view it as a criminal enterprise. Regardless, moonshiners have long demonstrated incredible resourcefulness in their efforts to stay out of the reach of the law. The beginnings of moonshining. Moonshining refers to the illegal production of alcohol, typically homemade whiskey, in unregulated and often clandestine conditions. The practice grew significantly during the Prohibition era, 1920 to 1933, when the production, sale, and transportation of alcohol were prohibited in the United States. However, moonshining itself predates Prohibition, with roots going back to early settlers, especially in the Appalachian region. Whiskey distilling was a practical way to preserve surplus grain, and it quickly became a local tradition. The term moonshine comes from the practice of distilling at night, under the cover of darkness, when law enforcement was less likely to be patrolling. Over the years, this underground industry evolved, especially after the government introduced excise taxes on alcohol and attempts to control production through licensing and regulation evasion techniques. A history of creativity and craftiness. Moonshiners have developed a wide range of techniques to evade capture, often relying on a combination of ingenuity, the lay of the land, and a deep understanding of local law enforcement patterns. Their survival, in many ways, depends on their ability to outwit and outlast the authorities on. The art of secrecy. Hidden distilleries and remote locations. The first line of defense for moonshiners is the location of their operation. Moonshiners have long preferred isolated, hard-to-reach areas for their distilleries. The Appalachian Mountains, with their rugged terrain and thick forests, have been a natural choice for illicit operations. These remote locations provide cover from both the authorities and potential rival moonshiners. Operating in hidden locations allows moonshiners to evade the notice of local law enforcement, whose resources may be limited in rural areas. By setting up distilleries in deep forests, caves, or hidden valleys, they can avoid the regular patrols or accidental discovery by outsiders. Even if someone does stumble upon their operation, the remoteness often makes it difficult for authorities to act quickly. The steep, rugged terrain often makes it nearly impossible to catch a fleeing moonshiner once they've been tipped off too. Lookouts and signals. Keeping watch on of the most effective ways moonshiners protect themselves from the law is through the use of lookouts and warning systems. In many cases, moonshiners would set up a network of informants or lookouts placed at vantage points, such as on high ground or along frequently used roads. These lookouts were trained to spot signs of law enforcement activity from miles away, such as vehicles or lawmen on horseback. When a lookout spotted someone coming near, they would signal the distillery operators, often with hand signals, flashing lights, or other subtle methods. This early warning system would give the moonshiners enough time to hide their equipment or dispose of any evidence before the authorities arrived. 3. Disguising operations. Camouflaging the distillery to further protect their illegal operations, moonshiners would often go to great lengths to camouflage their stills and equipment. A still, the main piece of equipment used to distill alcohol, is a large and conspicuous object. It stands out in the wild, so moonshiners learned how to hide it in plain sight. Some would build elaborate structures around their stills, creating small cabins, sheds, or barns to obscure the equipment from view. In some cases, moonshiners would even cover the still with a false floor or put it in a concealed outbuilding. Additionally, moonshiners often made use of their local environment to hide their operations. For example, they would build stills in dense thickets of trees or alongside rivers, where the sound of flowing water could help mask the noise of distilling. In some cases, moonshiners would even craft stills from local materials, using clay or stone to construct makeshift stills that could blend in with the surroundings for fast getaways. Escape routes and vehicless escape routes are another critical part of the moonshiner's plan. Once authorities or law enforcement are alerted to a distillery, moonshiners often have to make a quick exit. To prepare for such a scenario, they will establish numerous hidden trails or routes, sometimes known only to a select few. These routes would allow them to flee quickly and evade capture, whether on foot or horseback. Moonshiners also became skilled at creating distraction techniques to divert law enforcement. One common strategy was to use decoys, such as burning down abandoned cabins or setting fire to brush to create confusion. Others would have a secondary vehicle stationed at a nearby location, ready for an escape once the lawmen arrived at the still. In more urban areas or places with better access to vehicles, moonshiners would often outfit their vehicles with hidden compartments for transporting illegal alcohol. These vehicles were modified with secret compartments in trunks, undercarriages, or even in the fuel tank. This way, moonshiners could avoid detection when they were transporting their illicit goods to markets, avoiding direct searches by law enforcement. 5. Understanding the law. Legal loopholes and technicalities. Moonshiners often had a deep understanding of local laws and the technicalities of alcohol production, which allowed them to exploit legal loopholes and stay one step ahead of the authorities. Many moonshiners would carefully research the specific regulations regarding alcohol production in their state or region, and some became experts in interpreting the fine print. For example, it was legal to produce alcohol for personal consumption as long as it wasn't being sold. Some moonshiners would take advantage of this loophole, distilling alcohol for personal use and then selling it under the guise of gifts or donations. This made it difficult for authorities to track the production and sale of moonshine without concrete evidence of illegal activity. In other cases, moonshiners would take steps to obscure the true nature of their activities. Instead of producing large quantities of moonshine at once, they might produce smaller amounts, distilling in stages and keeping things under the radar. They would often use large quantities of different types of alcohol for dilution, making it harder for authorities to trace the exact contents of the product. 6. Bribes and local connections. Corruption and community support. During both the Prohibition era and later during periods of intense law enforcement action against moonshiners, the industry relied heavily on local community support. In rural regions, moonshining was often seen as a necessary economic activity, and law enforcement was frequently sympathetic to those involved. Moonshiners would often form connections with local officials, lawmen, and even judges, bribing them to turn a blind eye to their activities or to provide information about pending raids. Bribery wasn't the only form of local support. In many cases, the local community helped protect moonshiners, viewing them as a vital part of the local economy, especially in regions with limited job opportunities. It wasn't uncommon for neighbors to offer shelter to fugitive moonshiners, hiding them from the authorities or providing assistance in times of need. The decline and modern moonshining. While moonshining remains a part of American folklore, the industry has changed significantly over the years. With the rise of modern law enforcement and surveillance technology, it has become more difficult for moonshiners to evade capture. Advances in technology, such as heat sensors, drones, and sophisticated tracking methods have made it harder for illegal distillers to stay hidden. However, there are still those who continue the tradition of moonshining, albeit with more careful, low-profile operations. The craft of distilling has become more professionalized, and many moonshiners have transitioned to legal operations, obtaining licenses and permits to make craft spirits, often in small batches that honor the tradition of moonshine. Moonshiners have long demonstrated ingenuity, resilience, and creativity in evading capture and arrest. From hidden distilleries in remote locations to lookouts and signals, their ability to stay out of the reach of the law has been a testament to their resourcefulness and adaptability. Though moonshining is less common today due to modern law enforcement techniques and changing regulations, the legacy of these skilled and secretive distillers lives on, deeply ingrained in the history and culture of the United States.